Hello Tyrants and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have another Straw Hat Crew discussion. This time it's not going to be about power, but it's going to be about my personal favorites. And so what I'm going to do here is talk about where I kind of put each character in the crew as far as my favorite. I'm going to talk about why I think they're there. So this won't include a lot of power discussion and what they can do in a fight. This is more of just what the character is as a character, as a person. Who are they? Why I like them, why I dislike them, why I think they're a good character, and why I think they're a bad character. I'm going to be looking at things like how they're written, how they are supposed to come off to our readers, and how they tend to come off to their readers. So we'll see all that mixed together and see what that does for each character. And I'll start with a general idea, and it's that none of the Straw Hats are bad characters. I don't think any of the Straw Hats are poorly written characters. I think some have more flaws than others, and I think some are written exceptionally well for the story, but I don't think any of them are narratively bad. So let's start with my least favorite character, and that's going to be Chopper. Now, Chopper I think is the least fleshed out of all the Straw Hats, and I think he's that way for a number of reasons. I think it has to do with his age and his ability to kind of hold the scene on his own. Whenever we see Chopper, he's with someone else. He's with another member of the Straw Hat crew and he's interacting with them. And we rarely see Chopper on his own. We have the instances of when they were all separated, he was on his own. And we see some times during Drum Island where he's a loner. But for the most part, he's with someone else. And I think that's because by himself, his character isn't that intriguing. Looking at his backstory, it feels a lot better to see him by himself because that kind of builds who Chopper is. You see that he didn't have any friends, he didn't have any loved ones, he was by himself most of the time. And that was a big driving factor of how Chopper kind of acted as an individual. Joining the crew and gaining all these friends, of course, they changed things. So he doesn't have this air of loneliness anymore. He doesn't have this air of sadness that kind of weighs him down. And while that's a good thing, and I think that's a form of development, I think it wasn't replaced with anything. So you lose the sadness, you lose the loneliness, and you have friends and camaraderie, but that kind of takes away from what else his character can be because it wasn't replaced with anything. The Chopper we know now is more or less the same individual, but with friends. So he's more social, he's more communicative. He enjoys being around people, he enjoys sharing with people, but it really only happens with the crew. And part of that I will point out to writing, because I think Chopper, as a character outside of the story, is supposed to be a mascot for One Piece. He's this cute, adorable character. He's got bright colors. He's an animal. I think he serves a purpose to be kind of like a cute face to One Piece. And while I don't think that's a bad thing, I think it does take away from how his character can develop. With that being said, Chopper does have good moments in the story where he stands out. He's still with other crew members, but he stands out as a unique individual in that scene. I know one of the scenes that really shocked me in the time skip was when they're in the Seducing Woods of Whole Cake Island, and they're trying to get away from the woods. They're being attacked. They're being tricked. They have all these animals. They have all the trees, all the homies. Everyone's attacking them, and they're trying to get away. Eventually, even Brule catches them, and they've pretty much been cornered. And at this point, Chopper goes Monster Point, and he says something that really exemplifies kind of like the mindset of the readers and viewers, which is that they're up against one of the Yonko, and it's just dawned that they've been underestimating them. And I point that out as a very important quote, and that's chapter 835, in case you want to look at it. But I point that out as a very strong quote because he's with Nami. He's with the person who's always cautious, who generally makes those calls. And this is Chopper saying this. Chopper is realizing that they've come to a Yonko's territory and they've kind of been messing around. And for the most part, you don't see Chopper making statements like that. You don't see him realizing that they're kind of over their heads in a way that isn't a gag, in a way where he isn't just afraid to be afraid. He's thinking about it rationally. He's saying, like, we've been coming through this, we've been fighting through this, and we haven't been taking it seriously enough. And you can also look at other moments like when he's fighting Kumadori, and he's kind of going through the rationality of what it means to win this fight, what it means to take down CP9, and what it means to save Robin. And he's trying his hardest, and he's not quite able to take down Kumadori before he has to take out the Rumble Balls. But he's running through this process in his head, like, if certain things aren't met, if certain things aren't done, we lose Robin. And we can't have that. So I think he has good moments when things are really picking up, when things are serious. But I think more often than not, he kind of falls flat, or he kind of falls to the background. He's used as a gag character. And that's why I kind of put him at this point on the list, just because more often than not, he's used for a gag rather than a serious moment. Next on my list is Jinbei. And I know that might sound weird. I know Jinbei is a big fan favorite, but for me personally, I don't see his dynamic on the crew. And this isn't to say that by himself he's bad. I think just fitting in with the crew, it just seems weird to me. Mainly because of how his character is already established before he joins the crew. Jinbei kind of has his own lore, his own backstory, his own history. And he's gone through character development that usually each Straw Hat goes through after they become a Straw Hat. So, once they join the crew, there's a big moment in which their character starts to grow and develop into something new. Jinbei, on the other hand, I think we've passed his character development. I think the Jinbei we have now is the Jinbei we'll have at the end of the series. And while that isn't a bad thing, that becomes repetitive as a main crew member. And I say that to say, I don't think any of the other crew members are done growing yet. I think every other crew member will still develop as the story progresses. They still have room to grow, and they will grow. Jinbei, on the other hand, seems stagnant. He's, like I said, he's established. And my feelings may change as he spends more time on the crew, as we get more of that interaction. But for now, I definitely don't feel like it's such a strong addition. There are some things outside of character that I think Jinbei excels at. For example, his ability to make judgment calls in stressful situations is great. When he's, pretty much telling the crew what to do in Whole Cake Island, acting as a interim captain, and he's doing things that even Zoro wouldn't do. He's kind of instructing the crew on how to act and what to do while Luffy's away. And I don't think anyone else on the crew can do that the way Jinbei does. And I take that from his experience as a captain. His experience in his years of being a pirate is that he kind of knows how to run a crew. He knows what they need to be doing. His knowledge and experience is something that we don't have on the crew. The knowledge of the world as it is now is something that we don't have. And so I think that's where Jinbei's biggest kind of plus comes in, is that he has a lot of knowledge. He knows about the Yonko. He knows about the New World. He's connected to some of the big things that move in the New World. So having him here kind of gives us that look inside that we didn't have before. In time, as we see more from Jinbei, I'm sure that I'll grow to like him being part of the crew. And the only reason I put him above Chopper in the first place is just because while Chopper has stopped growing, but will later, I think Jinbei is just done growing, but already has his established character. So he has a little more to add to the scene than Chopper does, but I think Chopper will at some point have more to give to us. Coming up next is Sanji, which is probably another weird pick for some of you watching right now. And it's not that I hate Sanji or hate who he is as a character. I think he is a Straw Hat with a lot of flaws to his character. And I think that's partially to do with the writing and partially just how we're supposed to perceive Sanji. Overall, I think Sanji is the nicest character on the crew. I think he is the most kind-hearted and caring person that they have. And we can see that with, you have the gags where he's kind of like brushing off the males and he's always catering to the females. But when you look at how Sanji acts, he will always protect his crew. He will always protect his friends, and he'll always be there for his friends. And that also extends to people who aren't his friends, which is one of the rare things of the crew in which Sanji just cares about people. Of course, he cares about his crew the most, but you don't have to be in his crew for him to care. I also think that Sanji is the character that shows the most that he cares. When you see a lot of the other characters interact, we all know that they care about one another, but a lot of them tend to be more undercover with their feelings. We don't really see a lot of other crew members showing that, that genuine nice side, that genuine caring side to the others. Usually when they interact, they're having fun, they're enjoying themselves, but there's not that, I really care about you, and kind of just that nice demeanor that Sanji has. Sanji's also incredibly smart. In the big arcs, when we see things happening, you have the section of people that are fighting, you have the people who are on standby for some reason in the story, and then you have Sanji. I think in every arc we see Sanji go off and accomplish some incredible feat of strategy that really no other Straw Hat seems to be able to handle. If there's a moment where hope seems lost, or it seems like they're in a sticky situation, there's a good chance that Sanji did something a couple chapters back that will help them out of the situation, that will help resolve whatever's happening. And that's the thing, is Sanji plans like 3 to 4 steps ahead. He'll take care of things before the fighting even starts, and then after that, once everything's calmed down, you'll see the fruits of what he's done and why he's been absent for some periods of the chapter. In Wano right now, we had Sanji disappear for I don't even know how many chapters he was gone. But I think it was a general consensus with the fandom that Sanji was going to show up and he was going to do something that we didn't know who else was going to do. We saw Momo up there and we're like, okay, Sanji hasn't been here for a while. He's going to save Momo. No one else has the ability to get in and out that Sanji has right now. And that's exactly what happened. Sanji came in clutch when we needed him, and that's what Sanji does. And he does it consistently. And now, even with all that being said, I think there are huge flaws in Sanji's character that goes against those positive points I mentioned earlier. I think the biggest flaw with Sanji is that sometimes he can get too emotional, and it makes him act irrationally. I think that he has a tendency to act in a very level-headed way up until a point where he gets too emotional. And personally, I think he's supposed to be written that way. I mean, you even see it in his powers. The way that Diablo Jambe works, and kind of the idea behind how he powers up. The idea behind his training is that his emotions kind of drive some of these things. When he's feeling those hot-tempered emotions, that kind of heats him up and applies to his powers. I think there's more to it than just his emotions, but I think that's a big factor of it. I think Whole Cake Island is a very good arc to kind of see how Sanji deals with his emotions, how he deals with his family, how he deals with the crew, and how he deals with the possibility of Zeff being in trouble. I think he makes some pretty poor choices in this arc. And it's not because, he's stupid or a bad character. It's just because when he feels so emotional like that, he does things more impulsively. He does things that he think will benefit everyone but himself. And it's good natured, but it often leads to trouble. For example, his entire deal with Big Mom, as far as agreeing to go to Big Mom, agreeing to be part of the wedding, and essentially join her crew and leave Luffy. That was never going to work. And in no way would any of the crew have thought that would work. There's no reason for them to believe that Luffy would just turn away and leave. So for him to kind of make that judgment to go there, I think is a bad idea. Now, there isn't a whole lot he could have done about Big Mom. A situation where he can't really find his way out of. If Big Mom calls you, you gotta do something or else she's gonna attack. But I guess my point being, she's gonna attack the crew anyway, because Luffy's coming. No matter what, Luffy is coming. So the portion in which he kind of fights Luffy, and he tells Luffy that, I'm leaving, you need to leave too. We all know that he's doing it so that they're safe. It's obvious. But we also know that's not going to work. We know that there's no point to doing that. And I think that Sanji knows there's no point to doing that. I mean, Nami knew that there was no point to doing that. But he still did it. And there was really no reason to. He could have just left, he could have... Nothing would have changed if Sanji hadn't attacked Luffy like that. Luffy still would have fought to go get him. Luffy still would have challenged Big Mom. He still would have crashed the tea party. There's no way you're stopping Luffy from getting Sanji back. So I think Sanji he acted impulsively in a stressful situation, which, I mean, is realistic. I'm not surprised that something like that would happen. But of all the people, I think it affects Sanji the most, just because of how much he cares and how much he wants to keep the people he cares about safe. Now, the other flaw I see Sanji with is his inability to fight women. And I know that that's a kind of a moral code that's been set into him by Zeph. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have that kind of moral code. However, I think it becomes an issue when you have other people on the line. Sanji is that character that cares the most about the crew. Yet, there is a stipulation in which he might not be able to protect his crewmates. And that's if a woman's attacking them. I will point to Khalifa for a main example because I think that's kind of the overall idea of what happens when Sanji faces a female character. He can defend, which is fine, but somehow, some way he's going to slip up and he's going to lose that fight. He's not going to fight back. He's not going to hurt them in any way. He's just going to try and stop them. And the issue I have with that is that we're supposed to be pirates. We can be good people to an extent, but we're pirates. There really isn't a rule or a law that dictates what they do and don't do. So for Sanji to be on a pirate crew and to have a selection of people he will not fight no matter what, I think is just bad. I think it's just bad for his character. Imagine if Khalifa was stronger than someone that Nami could handle. Imagine if Khalifa was Kaku level, or even Rob Lucci level. What happens when Sanji gets KO'd and Khalifa runs into Nami and Chopper? What happens then? Who handles that? Because they can't handle that. They're not going to be able to handle that fight. And so for Sanji not fighting, he's putting his crew in danger. And that's something that I'm generally not okay with. And he sits in kind of like a stark contrast because you have Sanji who won't hit a female. You have Zoro who would rather not. And then you have Luffy who doesn't care. And on that spectrum, they kind of lean in the opposite sides. Like Sanji will absolutely not hit a female. And Luffy absolutely does not care who he hits. Even Zoro, who doesn't like it, will still, as much as he can, incapacitate the enemy. He might not kill them, he might not cut them, but he will make sure that they can't fight the rest of the crew. When he's fighting against Monet, he's saying that, I might not cut you, I might not attack, but you can bet that you're not going to hurt any of my crew members. You can bet I'm not letting you leave here. So if Sanji was more like that, that'd be fine. But Sanji's of the essence where he won't do anything to a female fighter. And I just think that for the person who cares so much, for the person who's so nice, to have this kind of glaring obstacle as far as protecting people, I think that just ruins his character. It ruins it enough for me to put him this low. Next on the list we have Usopp. And Usopp is a character that it took me some time to come to like. It wasn't that I disliked him early on, I just wasn't a big fan of him. He was more of like a neutral character to me. He had good moments, but for the most part, his cowardice, the way he kind of acted in each arc, it got grinding at times, and I know that he's supposed to be more of a gag character than anything, but it still kind of wears on you. However, I think that Usopp is the most developed member on the crew. Of everyone we've had join, I think Usopp has gone through the most development, and he's become a character that I enjoy seeing. He's become a character that I enjoy to hear from. Even, his cowardice gags, they've become more funny to me because he has a tendency to back up those gags now. It's not just crying and running away. He'll cry and then he'll fight and win, which I'm fine with. That's part of his character. He's somewhat of a coward. He wants to be brave. And you can see him progressively trying to be more brave in each arc. I think Usopp is one of the smarter ones of the crew. Especially technically speaking, but I think overall he's a smarter individual. When you look at the things he's been able to do for the crew and how he's helped them out, you can see where his expertise shine. You look at the climate attack. That's Nami's whole deal. That's Nami's whole way of fighting. And that's something that he created. Not only did he develop a weapon that she could use, he developed it specifically for her abilities, for her know-how, for her knowledge. So he made this weapon that only Nami could use. And I think that's somewhat overlooked, but that's a huge deal. And look at his own weapons. He created his slingshots based on his own fighting style, based on his own skill. And they have so many varieties of uses. They have so many different ways they can be applied to situation. And these are all just things he came up with himself. And that's huge. That's amazing. Even Franky, for the most part, follows blueprints, follows, some kind of schematic. You have Usopp just making things with his own creativity. It is just, he thinks about it and he makes it. And not only is he smart in a crafting sense, but he's smart outside of that. When you have him and Luffy talking about Mary, I think that's a situation in which you see that he isn't just a gag character. He's not just a joke. He understands situations. He can read between the lines. He can see what's going on. He catches things pretty fast, and you can even see in the fight a little bit. Not to talk about fighting, but just the way that he handles that. He does a lot of thinking. He's able to think before and he's able to think during. He's quick on his feet. And when he isn't kind of having that cowardly spell, he's able to solve situations pretty fast. Whether it's, capturing Caesar before he can get away, or sniping Sugar before she can take out Luffy and Law. You have him come up with solutions on the spot. And that's something that you don't see a lot of other characters doing, at least not in the Stride crew. I also want to point out that Usopp is probably one of the closest, if not the closest friends to Luffy. And that kind of extends beyond the loyalty, because he's loyal to Luffy. He respects Luffy. But we see, usually when the crew are having their downtime, when they're together, Luffy and Usopp are always together. They're fishing, they're playing a game. Maybe they're hanging out with Chopper, maybe they're hanging out with Franky, but you see these two together all the time. And I think that points to a deeper connection, because there's something between Luffy and Usopp that the rest of the crew don't have. There's some kind of friendship there that really strikes a chord between those two in particular. And I think there's supposed to be a parallel between how they see the freedom of the sea and kind of being out on the sea, being free, being able to do what you want. Because with Luffy, you have the idea of Roger, you have the idea of Shanks. These pirates that went to sea and claimed their freedom so that no one else could take it. And you have Usopp looking towards his dad as doing the same thing. And you follow that same path of they want to end up in the same spot. Now, of course, Usopp's dream is become a brave warrior, and we expect him to go to Elbaf and have his own little arc, but I think he, for the most part, lies with Luffy, in which he wants to be a brave, free pirate on the sea. Just enjoying life the way he wants to enjoy it. And that's why I think they get along so well together. And the last one for this part of the video will be Nami. Nami is a character that I personally enjoyed very much pre-time skip and moderately less post-time skip. I think pre-time skip, there was a lot of development and focus on who Nami was as a character and how she interacted with the crew and other people. Whereas post-time skip, I think she's kind of hit a stagnant spot with development. Now I think that Nami is one of the crew members who cares the most about the rest of the group, but shows it the least. When we see Nami interacting with most people, she's usually doing it in kind of like a mother scolding a child kind of way. She's almost always yelling at someone or kind of reprimanding them, explaining something to them. She's acting more like a guardian than anything else. And I think that comes from her character, from her background of kind of having this motherly feel to where that comes out in her interactions with the rest of the crew. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all, because we see the moments when she shows that she cares. You know, we see how she feels about Usopp leaving the crew. We see how she feels about Sanji leaving the crew. We see how she feels about Luffy when he loses Ace. So she has those moments where when she feels hard. And she shows that she really cares about these people. But usually when she's in the face of them, she won't show it. And for the most part, Nami's always been that character who puts on a show to kind of keep people from seeing what she's really feeling. You know, she's been doing that since Arlong Park. We've seen her kind of put on a smile to avoid worrying others. And I think that's just a character tick that she has. Like I said, not necessarily a bad thing, that's the way she shows her emotions. One of the things I really like about Nami is that she pretty much manages the entire crew by herself. You know, she handles money, she handles navigation, she handles information. She has her hand on a lot of the things that the crew need to continue moving through the sea. And a lot of the things that none of the other crew members can really do. I think that without Nami, the crew has the most difficult time continuing on out of any of the other crew missing. Like, if they didn't have Usopp, you know, it wouldn't be as impactful if they didn't have Nami. Nami is such a linchpin to the entire crew and just what she does that I think her character, that's what makes her character more likable and shine more, is that she has her hand in everything. So even if she personally isn't developing, she's getting screen time for a lot of reasons. You know, she's taking care of business somehow. And I think that's great. I do wish that we get more development on her character, but I do like that we still get Nami as a character. You know, she's not just written off in the background. I also think Nami boasts some of the strongest loyalty to Luffy. And I think the main three are Nami, Zoro, and Usopp, who are probably the most loyal to Luffy. The ones that will put anything and everything on the line. And not to say that the other members won't, but of all the characters we see, I think these three are the ones who go above and beyond what's possible for their captain. Okay, so that was the first 5. In part 2, we'll go ahead and talk about the last 5. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.